Schedule B can be found in the back of the agreement. In paragraph 4, limits on the operation of regional jets, we begin to impose restrictions on the way United feeders can operate RJs. For example, UAX carriers will not be able to fly between any of our domicile airports with the exception of some few grandfathered routes on the East Coast. UAX carriers will not be able to increase flying or start up flying on routes flown by Mainline United in the past 24 months unless they meet a financial test. Also, United will not be able to pull out of any routes without meeting the same financial test. You can read about it yourself at the end of the agreement. It is called Exhibit C. 94% of all UAX RJ operations must be flown into or out of one of our major hubs. Again, we want RJs to feed UAL, not take away our flying. Only 10% of UAX RJ flights can exceed 800 nautical miles. RJ flying may not have the high frequency of shuttle flying, and some long flights may be desirable, but this provision will keep them feeding UAL and not replacing our traditional narrow-body flying. The next section, paragraph 5, concerns pilot employment protections directly. We were able to negotiate two very significant protections. First, we have dramatically improved furlough protection. Under this agreement, the company cannot furlough any pilot who has successfully completed probation prior to April 13th in the year 2000. Second, the company cannot reduce the number of captains and first officers and management pilots in active status below 7,962 without the consent of ALPA so long as 30 or more RJs are operated by UAX carriers. So what about second officers? They are protected as well, but we have no way to really predict how many 3-pilot aircraft will remain on the property at any given point in the future. We do know that our current contract clearly says what crew is mandatory for any given 3-person aircraft operation. Therefore, the effect of this pilot employment floor provision, written the way it is to protect 7,962 captains and first officers, plus the number of second officers required to appropriately staff all of our existing 3-man aircraft at any given time in the future. Paragraph 6, additional international and wide-body flying protection, was negotiated because RJs operated by UAX carriers will certainly feed both wide-body and international flights. The two protections are really improvements to provisions contained in our current contract. The international code sharing baseline is raised from 90% to 92.5%. Also, the measuring point is moved up from 1994 to the actual number of block hours flown in a 12-month period from July of 1996 through July of 1997. In other words, if the company does not fly at least 405,301 block hours of international flying, 92.5% of plan, then the level of international code sharing freezes where it is until the company is back into compliance. This is an improvement of almost 35,000 hours. Wide-body flying protection is also substantially improved. Our old guarantee was based on a level of flying negotiated in 1993. Under this agreement, the level of guaranteed wide-body flying is based on a 5-year fleet plan extending out to the year 2001. After 2001, the guarantee is based on the higher of 2001 plan or the wide-body hours actually flown in the year 2001. The plan is represented by Exhibit D, which is the last attachment to the letter. Paragraph 7 is additional narrow-body flying protection. UAX RJ flying will not be exclusively replacement in nature. As RJs are brought into the system, some number of inefficient turboprop aircraft will be parked, but the total capacity will increase over time. We want to deal with this in a manner that makes sure we control the proliferation of feeder flying. The way we will control the proliferation is by means of a formula-driven ratio between United's narrow-body flying and the total flying done in the UAX operation. The formula and how it works is in the agreement for your review. For now, let's just say that when there are 21 RJs, they can only fly 7.7% of UAL's scheduled narrow-body ASMs. As more RJs are delivered, the ratio grows. When there are 65 RJs, the max ratio is obtained, 11.7%. Today, we have no such protection. Paragraph 8 is called Change Circumstances. The RJ United growth scenario would in all likelihood move along just fine if United and the industry continue to be healthy. Unfortunately, as many of us know that have been here longer than 6 years or so, economic downturns do come along, and they often affect the airline industry, especially pilot employment, dramatically. United management simply would not consent to an agreement without it containing some form of downturn and major catastrophe language. They would not agree to a total package without some form of relief from the growth provisions in the document on the way into a downturn, during a downturn, and coming out of a downturn. We, of course, insisted that in return for RJs, pilots expected career protection in good times and bad. The result of our negotiations would work like this. There are reasonably well-defined criteria that UAL must meet in order to declare that they are indeed falling into a real economic downturn. You can read about them in paragraph 8A. First, the management must officially notify ALPA that they believe they have met the downturn criteria. They must provide ALPA with the required supporting documentation, and they must allow for ALPA to reply to the notice. After all of that is accomplished, the United Board of Directors must formally deal with the matter by resolution. Only then can the company pull down the flying as needed to weather the storm. The process does not end there. A continuous review is called for, and if needed, even a review by a jointly selected outside neutral professional. Once the company has jumped through all of the hoops, we switch to alternate RJ protections until United works its way through and out of the economic downturn. Specifically, United Express carriers would not be allowed to place any further RJ orders. United Express carriers would not take delivery of any more RJs either, except for up to 6 aircraft that were on firm order when the downturn began and that must be delivered during the next 12 months from the start of the downturn. Routes served by UAL mainline flights during the previous 24 months are specifically protected. Pilots who are surplus during the downturn period will be pay protected under certain conditions for 18 months or until they can find a bid position that will equal their pre-surplus pay. When United climbs out of the downturn and meets several performance conditions, the above restrictions and protections would drop dead, and UAX carriers could resume ordering RJs, assuming that UAL meets its growth requirements again. At this point, the agreement would be in force as if there had never been an economic downturn, except that some few number of pilots might be collecting pay protection until those entitlements expired. Obviously, we have never had this kind of downturn protection before. The pay protection provision is unprecedented. The subject of RJ-70 purchases by United is covered in the agreement. This section of the agreement says that there is a somewhat formal process that we will go through with the company in the event UAL wants to be fed by anything larger than an RJ-50. This addresses discussions with the UAL to determine the viability of flying regional jets at United. Nothing in this agreement precludes larger regional jets flying on the main line with United pilots should such an operation be viable. The MEC was very desirous of having some mechanism of monitoring, enforcement, and strategic planning concerning the entire UAX RJ operation. Section 9 sets up such a mechanism. Actually, it sets up an oversight committee that will keep tabs on the RJ operation. This committee will operate in a fashion similar to the System Schedule Committee, but with broader access to heretofore confidential information. There is also a well-defined grievance procedure if the MEC feels the company is not in compliance with this agreement. Again, we have never had this kind of feeder quality control provision before. Section 11, impact of a possible shuttle transaction. This is a simple paragraph that says that in the event UAL acquires any interest in the East Coast Shuttle, currently called the U.S. Airways Shuttle, ALPA and UAL will meet and discuss the contractual issues any such agreement would generate. This does not presume that such an event will ever occur. Section 12, effect on the agreement, is what we call boilerplate in the contract business. It just reminds folks that we are not changing our main collective bargaining agreement in any way except as specifically stated in this document. The last official paragraph in the document is duration. It merely states that this document will run concurrently with our collective bargaining agreement. Well, that's about it. We hope this review and other explanatory material that have been sent to your home will give you at least a basic understanding of what has been achieved in the RJ exception agreement. Your ratification vote is important. In fact, it is very important. Please vote, and as always, it has been our privilege to represent you at the bargaining table these many months. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you for taking the time to review this agreement. In addition to the materials and information provided to you, your LEC representatives have the resources to answer any questions you may have. Also, MEC officers, negotiating committee members, and professional staff are available to attend your local council meetings to discuss and answer your questions on this agreement. Please attend these meetings. This is a comprehensive and industry-leading agreement. No other pilot group has all the restrictions, protections, and assurances with respect to the regional jet as are incorporated in this agreement. Your MEC officers, negotiating committee, and I endorse this tentative agreement and encourage your support. Thank you.